Good morning and greetings from Northumberland. It's the 10th of February, and today is the feast of someone called St. Scholastica. She was a sister of St. Benedict. I think most of you will have heard of St. Benedict, the founder of the Benedictine community. She lived in the 500s, so about the time, or just before the time, when we celebrate our great monastic people of Northumberland. She about 50 to 80 to 100 years before our Aidan, and a bit longer before our St. Cuthbert. So just to give you the context. And she was an abbess, we're told, and we don't know much about her life except that she existed, she was the leader of a female monastic community, and she lived her life in devotion to God. I was speaking yesterday about the way in which to fill our life with God's love helps us to exclude those things that will harm us. But thinking about her this morning made me think about a talk I'm giving later on today about our region, about Northumberland and Northumbria and its historical and Christian heritage. And it's very interesting that in those stories we think of our great Northumbrian saints, Aidan and Cuthbert and Cedd and Chad and all these people, but we also think of people like Ebba, who we mark in our next door village at Beadnell, where one of my churches is, and St. Hilda, who of course is most famous for her double foundation in Whitby. And it reminded me that the monastic life is one of those areas in which the role of women was very important and very powerful in the early church. We think of women now as priests and bishops, and that's become very accepted in our Anglican church, if not throughout the world, but in the Anglican church certainly it's been accepted, and in the Church of England. But in the monastic world and in the early world, the way in which women exercised their ministry and their leadership was through monastic roles, and this was a big difference from the ordinary life. Women could only really influence things through men. There were very powerful women, very influential women, but they were only influential because they had the support or the encouragement of men and really began to influence men, whereas in the monastic communities the role of women was much more powerful. People will argue with that point, but I think it's true. Hilda governed a double monastery, and the vocation of women was nurtured in those places. And going back to Scholastica and thinking about our Celtic and Anglo-Saxon saints who were women, it reminds us that God calls us all, men and women. God calls us all, whatever our gender, whatever our sexual orientation, God calls us all to be his disciples, to fill our lives with his love, so that that love may overflow to others. So we celebrate and commemorate St. Scholastica today, but we pray for the vocation of all, that men and women, that all people may serve Christ in love, a love that overflows to others. May God bless us all today and always.